Okay, so the laws of physics are predicated on these logical laws. So it's the same thing
What
whether I
logical
prove it
laws?
logically or the law of causality. A caused B
Sorry,
to exist,
is that a
therefore B.
law? What law is that?
This is Newton's law of causality. Have you not studied physics?
Newton doesn't have a law of causality, my guy. Just, how's it going?
What's up, bro?
Not a whole lot. Your audio
So
is pretty
basically,
low there. Are you able to get a little bit closer to the mic?
is this better?
Yeah, I think
I think
so.
this is good, right?
Yeah.
All right. So I guess the strongest argument for God, in my opinion, would be the dependency argument. Have you heard of it?
Probably. Do you want to lay it out for the audience?
You just lagged out there.
I did. Do you want to lay it out for the argument for the
Yeah.
audience?
So there is basically just starting off with a postulation that there cannot be a state of affairs of only dependent things, because
Hold on,
obviously,
your
if there's
audio
a
is
state
still
of
very,
only
very
dependent
quiet.
things.
Like nobody can hear you.
All right, give me one second. Okay, so okay, is it better?
Not really.
Damn. All right. I guess I'm just gonna have to talk louder. Is this good?
That's probably better.
All right, so basically the postulation is that there cannot be a state of affairs of only dependent things. There must be something which is outside of the, I guess, chain of dependent things. And if that thing itself is necessary, then it's going to result in the absurdity of the infinite regress. So therefore, there must be a necessary existence which caused things to exist. And that would be God.
So how are you using the word dependent?
That which requires something else external to itself for existence.
Okay, and so how do you figure that there... So your first postulation was that everything that's dependent requires something else to exist. Is that the case? Is that what you're saying?
Wait, say that again?
Everything that's dependent requires something else to exist. That's what your postulation is. It's kind of by definition.
Yeah, everything that's dependent requires something else external to itself to exist.
Okay, so how do you figure that there are dependent things? I mean, like, okay, perhaps we can grant that there are dependent things. How do you figure that all of the physical things are dependent?
All of the physical things are dependent. Well, again, obviously, I'm just gonna go with the model of the Big Bang theory about the universe. So, if the universe began to exist, it requires a cause for that motion, and motion requires a cause. And then I could just run a deductive argument that whatever caused the Big Bang to exist itself cannot be a dependent thing, or it could be a dependent thing, but then that itself would require an explanation for what caused that, and it cannot go back infinitely because there would be no explanation for why things exist in the first place.
Well, to be clear, it seems like you're
So
kind of
there must be
confusing. It seems like you're kind of confusing like um, temporal regress with ontological dependency regress, right? So it could be the case that you could have an infinite chain. I don't see why it couldn't be the case that you could have an infinite chain of moments before the Big Bang, each one causing the next, but you still have some underlying fundamental ontological thing upon which,
yeah,
you
but
know,
again,
some ontological
that
fundamental
that's
physical thing upon which all of the other stuff is kind of the players on an underlying stage.
But hold on, if you hold that there can be an infinite regression of causes, each fully dependent, that just raises the question: for every event that you pick within this, chain, it requires something. So there is no first cause. So if
Yes,
there's
that
no
would be
first
true if
cause to
there's
a
an infinite
dependent
regress
thing,
of causes.
okay. So it's possible that something can begin to exist without having a cause.
No, it wouldn't begin to exist. It would have
Okay,
always
so is it
existed.
impossible for
That's
something?
the
Is it is it is it impossible for something to begin to exist without having a cause?
um
Is that an
you would at least
impossibility
have
or
to
a
give
possibility?
you would at least have to give an argument. It doesn't seem like it's logically impossible.
Wait, hold on. It's this is the argument. The question itself is gonna, decide whether it's possible that an infinite regress could exist. If you grant to me that it's impossible for a uh, for something to exist without a cause, that it
By the way, your connection's
because
cutting out.
to you he came
Your
out of
connection's
nothing,
cutting out. Can
and
you
that's a
repeat
logical
that?
possible. Yeah, so it's a true dichotomy that either it's possible or impossible. There's no other alternative to this scenario.
Yeah,
Either it's a
so
logical
we have to be a little bit.
impossibility that something can
Okay,
begin.
so I don't think it's a logical impossibility. No.
Okay, so it's a possibility that something can begin to exist without having a cause
Yeah,
for its
that
existence.
seems like it doesn't seem like there's some built-in logical contradiction there.
You don't think that it's a logical contradiction that something can just spawn from nothing with literally no cause for why it spawned into existence?
I appreciate
It just happened to
I
come into
appreciate
existence from
I
absolutely
appreciate the
nothing.
intuition pumping, and I understand that this is counterintuitive. But to say that something is logically impossible is much stronger than to say something is, say, physically impossible or even metaphysically impossible. To say something is logically impossible implies that there is some explicit contradiction in the statement itself, or in the implications of the statement. So if you can derive that, that would be great. And then I'd be like, yeah, you're right, it is logically impossible. But it's not clear to me that it's logically impossible that something can begin to exist, that something cannot, that it's logically impossible for something to begin to exist without a cause.
Yeah, I believe that it's logically impossible
On
and
what
metaphysically
grounds?
impossible that something can begin to exist without having a cause.
On what grounds do you think it's logically impossible for something to
Logically,
begin to exist without a cause?
it's how exactly do you want me to disprove to you that
Provide
something
a
that begins to
contradiction.
exist must have a cause for its existence? I mean, it seems
Provide the
the
contradiction.
contradiction is that it's an impossibility.
That's just saying the claim
It's do
again.
you, do
You
you
have to provide the
all of yeah
contradiction.
yeah. Are you looking for like a specific like name like for a contradiction like the law
No,
of like
I'm looking
non-con?
for a
What
P
kind
and a
of
not P.
contradiction?
Look. So it is logically impossible for a bachelor to be married because a bachelor is a non-married person. So a non-married person cannot also be a married person, as that would be a P and a not P. Person A is married
Okay,
and
good.
person A is not married. So what's the contradiction in in something beginning to exist without a cause? What's the logical contradiction? What's the P and not P?
All right, good. So that example that you just gave, it's basically showing that the contradiction is a contradiction because definitionally a married bachelor cannot exist because by definition a bachelor is somebody who is unmarried. So being a married or whatever, you get what I'm saying.
Yes,
Definitionally, it's in contradiction.
this isn't.
So let, so
Yeah,
let's
this is
so
a
let's look at
contradiction.
yeah. So let's look at the definition of what something is dependent for, right? If we're talking about
Sorry,
ontological dependency, which I'm
you're moving the goalposts. The claim here is that you said. Sorry, the claim isn't that you said. The claim is that it is logically impossible for a thing to begin without a cause. That has nothing to do with dependency,
but
right?
yeah, but the argument is predicated on existence, though. It's not talking about like abstract logical ideas. It's
Okay.
talking about
So
real
you asked, is
existence.
it logically impossible? I said, I'm not convinced it is logically impossible. And then you've been pushing back on me on that. If you want to say it's physically
Yeah,
impossible, provide the law of physics that makes that the case. And we can talk about it.
the law of physics. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm using
Look,
the principle of causality.
So if you say something's logically impossible, then presumably that means that you have some logical contradiction in mind that if the proposition was true, then you would be affirming a contradiction. If you say that something is physically impossible, then that means that presumably you have some law of physics in mind that if the proposition was true, you would be violating or breaking one of these laws of physics.
Okay, so the laws of physics are predicated on these logical laws. So it's the same thing
What
whether
logical
I prove it
laws?
logically or the law of causality. A caused B
Sorry,
to exist,
is that a
therefore B.
law? What law is that?
This is Newton's law of causality. Have you not studied physics?
Newton doesn't have a law of causality, my guy.
Oh my God, bro, you haven't studied philosophy, bro. We can tell, bro. This is bad for you. This is a bad look, bro.
So is there some physical law that a thing would break if it began to exist without a cause?
Yes, the law of causality. This is breaking the
Okay,
law of causality.
could I find this in a physics textbook?
Physics is using causality for its studies. What do you think
Not really.
science is? Science is based on logical principles that it uses upon. Are you saying that physics can break the laws of logic?
What law of logic is it breaking?
The law of causality. I'm
Okay, is
repeating it
there a
5 times now, you know what I'm
philosophy
saying?
textbook or like a philosophy of logic textbook where I can go see it written down,
There's
the law of causality?
there's many
Because that's not a
yeah,
law.
there's many there's many laws within philosophy. There's a law of identity, there's a law of transcendenticity, there's a law of causality. There's many laws. You just haven't studied them.
Okay,
Which
where
is
can I go?
clearly showing.
Where can I go read? Actually, you know what? Let me just go to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, and we'll look up law of causality. It should be there if it's a real thing, right?
Sure, yeah, go on, go. You can definitely look it up. It's definitely there.
Let's go see if the law of causality. Oh no! What is this? Oh no!
Show your screen. Show your screen. Show your screen.
I'm going to. Don't worry.
Show your screen. Don't be lying. Every effect has a cause. Congratulations.
Why are we looking at an AI overview? We're looking at Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Causation in the law, the metaphysics of causation, regularity and inferential theories of causation, causation and manipulability. Doesn't seem like the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy has anything called the law of causality.
Read the first Stanford philosophy.
Causation in the law, sure. This is presumably about like legal stuff.
No, you don't have to read all. Just go back and read what was under the thing.
Oh, you mean the AI overview?
No. It says the basic questions concerning the law, the causation.
Oh, the basic questions concerning causation in the law are: what are the criteria in law for deciding whether one action or event has caused another, etc. This is about like legal stuff.
Yeah, but this is applying to philosophy. It says
this is legal philosophy, right? We can go. Let's just go find that quote and then we can read it a little bit more. The basic criteria. Wait, wasn't that the phrase? Criteria in law. In the context of basic questions concerning causation in the law are: what are the criteria in law for deciding whether one action or event has caused another generally harmful event? 2, whether and to what extent causation in legal contexts differ from causation outside the law, for example in science and everyday life? And 3, what reasons, presumably based on the law's use of causation to attribute responsibility, explain and or justify such differences as may be found to exist? So this article, you can't see that. This article is about like legal stuff. So this is legal philosophy, right? We're talking about like the Anglo-American legal tradition. This is not the law of causality. This is not some universal law of causality as you made it out to be. So tell me, where can I find out about this law of causation?
Okay, so causation is just defined as every effect has a cause. This is what we use as causality.
That's an assertion, by the way.
When they're talking about causality. That's an assertion. So what do you think causality is? You don't think causality exists?
I'm pretty skeptical of the traditional philosophical notion of causality, yeah. I take a more scientific approach, where causality is merely a relation between space-time events that are spatially or that are temporally separated.
Wait, say that again?
I take causality to be merely a relation between space-time events that are temporally separated. Or are temporally coincident. That's fine too. It's not some metaphysical relation of between cause and effect. Like that is I'm pretty skeptical of that kind of notion.
Yeah, but causality can be applied to non-physical things. For example, let's say John had 5 apples and he gave 1 apple to his friend. The reason why John has less apples is because the cause, which is himself, which he gave to the other person. Causality just worked without having it to be.
Hold on, I'm sorry. You said the reason. Reasons and causes are not the same thing. All causes are reasons. Not all reasons are causes.
All reasons are causes? Is that what you just said?
No, all causes are reasons. Not all reasons are causes.
How does that disprove my point?
You gave a reason, not a cause.
Yeah, if an effect has a cause, that's the reason why it exists.
So the reason why John had 5 apples and now he has 4 is because 5 minus 1 is 4, right? That is a reason, and it's applied to some sort of abstract object. But the cause of the quantity of apples he has decreasing, well, that's just he has 5 apples, now he has 4 apples. The cause is like the physical motion of him like grabbing the thing and moving it, right? The cause is not 5 minus 1 is 4.
All right, so like I said, right? Every effect has a cause. This is the principle of causality.
Oh, now
Depending
it's a
on
principle,
obviously
not a
which
law.
model. That's what I originally said. It's a principle. The principle of
I'm pretty
causality.
sure you originally said it's a law. Called it the law of causality.
Yeah, I can just hold to be a law and principle is the same thing.
Yeah, laws and principle. Okay, sure. I mean, they're not the same thing, but fine.
Yeah, so
Yeah, so
okay, so yeah, basically, right, the contradiction that you gave about the married bachelor can be applied to the universe, right? Because I hold that the universe began
can
to
it?
exist, therefore it must require a cause.
How do you, oh, wait, how does that?
Of course it can.
Okay, there's a few things happening here. First, you said you hold to the universe beginning to exist. We can talk about that. I think you'll find that that's not a consensus, but fine. The second thing is that even if the universe began to exist, you have yet to show that that means that it has a cause.
Everything, yeah, of course, everything that begins to exist has a cause for its existence. This is just basic logic.
That's
If
an
you don't think
assertion.
that something can begin to exist we're talking about physical time, something that happened in physical
Mm-hmm.
time. So hold on. If it didn't begin to exist, wait, hold on. Are you saying it began to exist? Where did it come from? If it began to exist, can you tell me that?
Well, first we have to be a little bit
What was the
careful.
cause?
When you say
What's the
when
explanation?
you say began to exist, do you mean that there was a first moment of time?
There was a time where it did not exist, and then it came into existence. So yes,
Okay,
it's
yeah.
not a
So
cause.
I reject the notion that there was a time when when the universe didn't exist.
When the universe didn't exist.
Yeah, I reject
So
that.
you're saying that the universe, where you're saying that the universe is eternal.
No, what I'm saying is that for every moment of time that has existed, the universe has existed.
Yeah, that means it's eternal. So the universe
No, it
is eternal.
doesn't.
Okay,
There
that's
could be a
fine.
first moment, and then there's no universe before that first moment, and there's also there's no time before that first moment because there's no before.
Wait, so the universe just came from nothing.
No, that's not the claim.
So how did it come? How did it come into existence?
It could have been kind of ontologically, or yeah, it could have been ontologically preceded by a timeless state of affairs for the universe.
A timeless state of affairs. Okay, what is this thing that caused it to exist? Or what is this timeless thing? What is it? Does it have any
It's like a
substance, any ontology?
universe, except it just doesn't have time.
Did that cause it to? Did that cause this universe to exist?
Causation is a confused notion if you are talking about a thing that doesn't have time.
Hold on. You believe in a timeless universe.
No, I
Who
think that
holds this
this is at
position?
least
Like
I think this is at least a possibility.
Okay, so is it possible that I think God is the most like plausible explanation for why the universe even exists, because God has a will, he is timeless, he is necessary. These are all the attributes that we associate with the timeless thing that you're talking about, except you just derived its consciousness and its will and caused it and said it's some type of like
Said it's some type of
to
like
exist. That isn't any that's not the most type of what I'm asking you what it is.
yeah. So this is an idea put forward by James Hartle and Stephen Hawking in the 80s. It's called the no boundary proposal. This is like a real thing that physicists take seriously. Um, so it's not really like stealing from religion. It's not working within the confines of theism and then just throwing away the mind or something. This is just like something that is kind of expected or perhaps predicted given certain types of quantum gravity behavior. You have a timeless state of affairs that give rise to a non-timeless state of affairs, or to a time-full state of affairs. We would call that boundary between the timeless and the time-full state of affairs. You might call that the Big Bang.
Is there a distinction between them, or are they the
One
same
has
thing?
time, the other doesn't.
So they're distinct things, correct?
In some sense, they have distinct characteristics, but it's sort of like a transition. It's sort of like, you could say that like an ice cube is distinct from the water that it melts into, but it's like the same thing. It's just transitioned, right?
And so this timeless thing that you've just made up, it basically just
Definitely
made the
didn't just
universe
make
come
up.
into existence.
This is an idea that predates me being alive. Anyway, you were saying before you started to poison the well?
So how is it that you're gonna say that it did not cause the universe to exist? You're just
Because
trying to,
causation is a notion that only exists within time. And if there's no time, then it doesn't make sense to talk about it causing anything.
Wait, hold on. If there's no time, then therefore the universe is eternal, because what you're saying is that this physical universe went from a time of not existing to existing. Therefore,
No,
it
you're
had
confused.
a change in states, therefore time.
I don't define time as a change in state.
No, I'm not confused. You're confused.
I don't define time as a change in state.
That's the definition of metaphysical time.
I don't care about your definition of metaphysical time. The way that I'm using the language of time is to refer to
and I don't care about your definition. I don't care about nice
if you're doing
argument,
if you're doing an internal critique of this proposition that I'm giving you, then you have to work with the definitions that I'm using. Otherwise, you're just strawmanning me.
There's an objective definition that I'm applying, so it has to.
Definitions aren't objective. Definitions are by definition subjective.
Wait, so if definitions are not subjective, I mean, if definitions are subjective, then there's no contradiction within reality, because I can just say that a married bachelor can exist. I'm just going to change.
You can. You would just be changing the definition of bachelor, yeah, or married, yeah.
Yeah. So there. So
look. When we talk about contradictions, what we're talking about is contradictions in meaning. You can redefine words however you want. It's just when we typically
meanings
talk,
are definitions. Meanings are definitions. Bro.
Right. And so when we talk about a contradiction in the existence, in the logical existence of a married bachelor, what we mean is that there's a contradiction in the meaning implied by the word married and the meaning implied by the word bachelor. Now, if you mean something else by the word bachelor, then no, there doesn't have to be a contradiction. It's just typically you and I both understand what we mean by the word contradiction, or sorry, by the word bachelor.
Meanings are dependent upon definitions. If we hold
meanings are definitions,
and we say that
if you and I accept the same meanings for a word, then that's fine. But look, if you're going to critique my worldview, then you should use words the way that I'm using those words. Otherwise, you're just strawmanning my view.
If everything is just subjective meaning, there's no way of actually disproving anybody's position, because I can just say I don't believe that's
look.
That's what
so
I mean.
there are certain meanings I attribute to certain words, and so if you think that my view, as in the things that I mean, not just the words that I'm saying, but the things that I mean, if you think that the things that I mean are incorrect, then that would mean that you should be able to take on the language that I'm using with the definitions that I'm using and show that there's a contradiction in the meanings implied by that language in the way that I'm using it.
I can still disprove to you that your argument about time is somehow different than mine's.
Yes, we may have different notions for the words time. The way that I think about time, the way that I use the word time, is a purely wait a minute. Of course, it's purely temporal, and it has to do with specific space-time relations and so on. That's the way that I and all physicists, by the way, use the word time.
Whoa! You just made a huge assertion. You do realize that there's different theories of time, right?
Yeah, sure. If you ask a physicist what they mean by time, they will tell you that time is a space-time relation. Specific kind of space-time relation.
Do you know what the definition of metaphysical time is?
I don't care about metaphysical time. I'm talking about time in the sense that physicists use it.
Yeah, nice argument, bro. Just say I don't care to somebody, and then therefore they're false, right?
If you're trying to critique my worldview, you have to adopt the definitions I'm using.
How am I going to critique your argument without presuppositions that I hold to? Therefore,
sorry, you cut out. How can you critique my argument without what? Oh, he ran.